Welcome to a place where the walls remember and they never forget. Tonight, we're exploring the world's most haunted houses. Homes once filled with love, now consumed by fear. From ghostly whispers in the attic to shadowy figures watching from the hallway. These aren't just stories, they're chilling encounters that defy explanation. Turn down the lights and enter if you dare, because once you cross the threshold, you may never feel alone again. I bought my first house in 2003 and was over the moon. Shortly after moving in, two of my neighbors began joking with me about the ghost in my house. Well, I thought they were joking, so I just played along, pretending I had seen one and that it was no big deal. But as time went on that summer, I met more and more of my neighbors, and they all brought up the same topic. Finally, an elderly woman on the block, who was quite kind and friendly, told me the story after I asked her. I knew she wasn't going to mess with my head, which is why I asked in the first place. It turned out the previous owner had purchased the home, but never lived there because she said it was haunted. She reported hearing sounds in the night, footsteps and sobbing, and seeing glimpses of a man sitting in the kitchen covered in blood. One of my neighbors had helped with the house renovations and said that while putting up drywall, he felt something lift up his dreadlocks. Though I'd had paranormal experiences before, it had been years, and by then I had just chalked them up to night terrors. One day, I went to a small neighborhood video store to rent a movie. I had to fill out a form with my demographic data and credit card information. The owner of the store looked at the form and said, "Oh my God, you live in that house." I asked her what she meant, and she explained that her former employee had committed suicide in my house. She had come to the house as soon as she heard, but found it taped off by police as a potential crime scene. She told me that he had just moved into the house with his partner and had called his mother because he wanted to invite her over to meet his partner and come out to her. This was in the early 90s, when being gay was still a big deal. His mother already knew, since he had bought a house with another man and disowned him right over the phone. That same week, he received a letter from an HIV testing center stating he had tested positive for HIV. This was when HIV was a death sentence. He then sat at the kitchen table, ate a bowl of cereal, and shot himself in the head with a revolver. Since then, the store owner said she had experienced multiple paranormal incidents in the store. Videos flying off shelves and even levitating. The most I've experienced are sounds at night. The sound of Cheerios being poured into a bowl. I don't eat cereal. And the sound of sobbing in the kitchen. I often awaken to both. I remember my grandmother saying, "When the dead come to you, they want something. Perform an act of charity in their name and pray for them." So I did. I sat down at the kitchen table one night, lit a candle, and told him that each night I would recite a novena prayer for him before the lit candle. On the 9th night of the first novena to St. Anthony, patron saint of lost souls, I heard uncontrollable sobbing. I felt a strong presence of grief and despair, and the sound of hyperventilated breathing, as though someone couldn't catch their breath. I sat in the presence of this, knowing it wasn't malignant, but rather a connection of intimacy and compassion, something he deeply needed. For 45 days, I said a novena prayer before a lit candle for his soul and had a mass said in his name. A few times, I awakened to feel his presence standing over my bed, but I knew it was not a malicious one. This still happens from time to time, but less and less frequently. It's been years, and none of us really acknowledge what happened. But I talked to my brother about it yesterday and decided to share the story after coming across this group. I'm going to share a few of the things I personally witnessed. Background. I was 19 degrees Fahrenheit at the time. My ex-best friend was 20 million. My friend, who I call my brother, was 25 million. My cousin, 21F, who we'll call Peach, and two brothers, B1 and B2, also lived there. There was another male, T, and a female, S. I don't remember their ages. We were all renting rooms in a big house in Brandywine, Maryland. The house was owned by the brother's godfather, so luckily we didn't pay much rent. This was during the pandemic, so we were home more than usual. I wasn't visiting my actual home much. It was 2 hours away because of restrictions and not wanting to risk getting my elderly family sick. 1. The chair incident. Me and my ex-BF were in one of the male roommates' rooms. They were playing video games while I was on the phone and smoking with them. Don't do drugs, kids. We were the only ones home. Everyone else was at work, and my cousin was running errands with my brother. Suddenly, the room door slowly opened. We all froze, especially me, since I was sitting on the floor close to the door. T told me to stop playing, but I said in a shaky tone, I didn't do it. All three of us ran across the hall to me and my ex-boyfriend's room. While closing the door, we saw one of the breakfast bar chairs sitting on the steps. That sealed the deal for me. That glasses. We called one of the ghosts that because he wore glasses and was mean, was definitely messing with us. T said he left his phone behind, and we begged him not to go back for it, but he did anyway. When he opened the door, the chair was now in the middle of the hallway. I started praying. I was terrified. We barricaded the door and eventually fell asleep. Later that night, or early the next morning, when B1 came home, the chair was back at the breakfast bar. 2. The storm. Everyone except my brother was home. There was a really bad storm going on. The power was still on, but our phones lost service, and the in-game chat features stopped working. Then, the power went out. We all went downstairs to the living room to see if other houses had power. And they did. Their lights were still on. That's when we started to get antsy. BFF, B2, and T went to open the front door to check the storm. It wouldn't open. We all tried. Nothing. It was stuck shut. I started to pray again. I was close to crying. We tried the patio door. Wouldn't budge either. Then the basement door opened on its own. We were not allowed in the basement per the owner's request. I ran upstairs to get the sage because, absolutely not. Glasses, go back down there and leave us alone. I couldn't find the sage, so I grabbed my crystals and started saying the Lord's Prayer. At that point, I was terrified and about to pee myself. We all stayed in the living room because we were too scared to separate. Then my brother came home. We told him not to close the door, but he did anyway. We quickly filled him in. He laughed, then tried to open the door himself. And it wouldn't open. Just as I finished the prayer for the third time, the power came back on. The door finally opened, and our phones started working again. I called my mom. I was shook. 3. The basement. Okay, this one was our fault because we broke the no basement rule, but it still scared us. Me, Peach, and my ex-BFF were in the basement watching Once Upon a Time on her TV. We had her baby shower the day before and brought the TV down there. We all ended up falling asleep. Strange, since none of us were even tired. We woke up and kept watching. After a while, the then forbidden basement door, the one no one was allowed to open, slowly creaked open on its own. We all gave each other that look. If you're black, you know the look, and sprinted upstairs. Peach made it first, then me, then ex-BFF. We ran up the basement steps, then up the winding stairs to the room, and hid in Peach's room. I never stepped foot in that basement again. I was too scared. 4. Glasses jumped at me. One night, I was sleeping on my bed and woke up extremely hot, which is unusual. I'm anemic and always cold. My ex-BFF usually had the fan on, so I assumed he had turned it off. I opened my eyes and the glasses jumped at me. Full on jumped at me. I thought I was going to fall through the bed. I got up, grabbed the TV remote from his bed, and stayed up. I eventually fell asleep, but I don't remember how. That house is the house we do not speak of. We all moved out and went our separate ways. I only still talk to my brother. The rest either weren't close enough to keep in touch, or I fell out with them.
Thanks for tuning in. Watch another video if you dare.